everybody. Welcome into another show here on Between the Ears. And today, as promised, our game by game predictions for WVU football here in 2023. I'm Schuyler, Callihan. Joined with me is Christopher Hall. Yes, you probably already know I put out my article with the game by game predictions, but I'm going to do it again here because, hey, what the hell? Who cares? You can only have 14 mock drafts when the NFL comes around. So you might as well have 14 of these things too. But this is the one I'm going to go by. So whatever the article says, forget it unless it's the same exact thing. I'm literally going to predict these things as we go. I didn't predetermine these, and I don't think Chris did either. So we're going to go for it. We're going to wing it here in a way. But first, before we get into the breakdown, quick thoughts on the schedule. Chris, does anything stand out to you? Do you like the positioning of some of these games? Where the bye weeks at? Home games, away games? Is there any tough stretches? Anything that you found interesting with this year's schedule?
Well, we can start with let's see, what is that? 10 game 10 game stretch starting with Pitt when you play the rest of the Power Five opponents. Schedule's gonna be tough. I know we've kind of talked about it and kind of dive into it, regardless of production or returning starters, whatever it be. When you're playing against 10 straight Power Five opponents, the wear and tear throughout the season, it gets to you. So depth every year is always a concern. I do like West Virginia's chances in that regard. It's the first year that they were really able to retain their players since the portal NIL combo kind of poached a lot of the young guys when they were starting making production the last couple of years. So I do like that scenario for West Virginia. Still very young. But really, we don't know the timing of games. I do like the fact that three of the newcomers are in November. Again, with depth, don't think they have that quite depth yet. You kind of look at BYU with the size they have, and historically what they've had over the years, that they may be more prepared than the others. As far as that's concerned, anything else, not really. I just think it's no matter what. I know it's just really those playing 10 Power Five opponents right off all season long, 11 starting with Penn State. So it's still a brutal schedule from the outside looking in, but I do think it lines up with the four newcomers in November, helps them a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, the thing to me that really stands out is I think the schedule kind of gradually gets easier as the year goes on. A lot due in part because of those newcomers coming in. But I mean, your toughest opponent, arguably your toughest opponent, at least on paper, heading into the season is week one, this Saturday against Penn State. So it should get easier from here on out. And I mean, really, Pitt, we don't really know much about them. And we feel like they're going to be a decent team, but are they as good as what they were a year ago? I don't know. West Virginia probably should have won that game last year. So there's a lot of question marks with a lot of these Big 12 teams. And one thing that I noted on Twitter the other day, or X, whatever, is that you don't have to play the top two teams, which everyone believes is the top two teams in this league, in Kansas State and Texas. That's a huge win. You don't play Kansas, who may have one of the better offenses in this league, and you don't play Iowa State, who, even though they're going through their own crap right now with the whole gambling situation, that's a team you don't ever want to play just because what they do defensively and how challenging it is to go up against that team in that scheme. So that's a really good swap, I think, or a really good ordeal for West Virginia to have those four teams out, and you get the brand new the newcomers into this conference on your schedule in year one. So that's a huge plus. And I think, like I said too, schedule should get easier as we go along here. So if they can just keep their head above water or stay afloat for the first month of the season, which is 5 games, I think they have a chance to get the bowl eligibility. So without further ado, let's just get right to it. This weekend, yes, I will be making my pick on the game day show, but I don't think I'm going to spoil it here. What the hell? Let's just do it. It is the game by game predictions anyway. So I'm going Penn State. It is what it is. I think it's just they're too talented. They're too deep on both sides of the ball, and I think this is a tough challenge for West Virginia. I do think it is going to be a much more competitive game than what everyone is saying it's going to be. So I will give that to WVU. I don't think it's going to be a 20-point blowout. I think they keep it within 2 scores.
Yeah, I think the biggest is the talent gap. When you're talking about the starters, the top line of the depth chart, I think the talent gap's too much. I know quarterback Drew Eller, he he's only thrown, I think, 65 passes on the year. He's going to be a new starter as well. How he starts could really dictate the game. He comes out, throws a 50-yard touchdown pass, and gains confidence early. If West Virginia's playing soft in the secondary and allows him confidence just in an underneath game, it could be bad considering what they're bringing back in the backfield. I mean, they already had two guys that almost combined for 2,000 yards to bring in the Minnesota transfer. So that's going to be one of the tougher games. That defense, a bunch of unbelievable skill set on that defense. I think it was, and I had it on the list here. There was like 8 guys that's up for preseason's awards on that defense. When you put all the awards together there, some of them were multiple, like 12, 12 awards. So that defense is legit. I know that you can kind of say that their numbers are fudged a little bit playing in the Big Ten, all that good stuff. But I just think the talent gap. I'm kind of with you that West Virginia can keep this close, but the difference in this game will be who makes the plays. Maybe it's an interception late in the game, whatever it is. That talent gap at the top will be the difference. I can almost see Penn State pulling it away. That spread's staying at 20 and a half. It's probably around where it's going to be. I definitely think it's going to be a 3 possession game when it's all said and done. So yeah, I'm going Penn State as well, but I'm not totally sold that it's awful going good. There's a slim chance that West Virginia can win this game without a doubt. Again, defense jumps on Drew early, that they can stop the rushing game early. I know Singleton, unbelievable talent. I think was he's only a sophomore this year. Um, yeah, kid's a beast. So if they can stop that running game and force Drew to pass, win the game with his arm, then West Virginia definitely has a chance. Of course, offensively, West Virginia, who's going to step up at receiver? It's the same scenario. If West Virginia get their running game going against that stellar Penn State defense, all of a sudden the tides have totally turned. So could they sustain it if they get it early? That's the other question. Again, D has a great defensive coordinator. He's got a lot of tools available with that defense. So it'll be interesting to see how it lines up with two offenses. They're very similar in that regard. Of course, West Virginia doesn't bring back a 1,000-yard rusher, but um, do have a lot of hopes in C.J. Donaldson. So I'm not totally sold that it's going to be a blowout, but Penn State's extremely talented this year, and they're talking that this, Drew lives up to the hype. This could be the most talented Penn State team ever. So we'll see.
Yeah, so both of us having us dropping the season opener to Penn State this weekend. But luckily for West Virginia, they do get a little bit of a step back, or at least a break, and if you will, from this kind of challenging schedule in some ways, and that's against Duquesne in week 2 for the home opener. Meanwhile, the team that they play the next week, Pitt, they're going to be playing Cincinnati in week 2. Much better setup for West Virginia going into that backyard brawl. So I'm not wasting much time on this. This has got blowout written all over it. I don't think Duquesne's going to be able to hang in at all. This game will be over by, I don't know, 3 minutes into the second quarter. It'll be a 2 or 3 score game by that point. Duquesne is not one of these FCS teams that are very well, I shouldn't say they're not very well respected, but they're not one of these teams that are in the FCS playoffs every single year. So I'm going West Virginia big.
Yeah, not even worried about West Virginia's roles.
Week 3 is the backyard brawl. Again, West Virginia lost kind of on that fluke play a year ago. You could point to that. You could point to the fourth and centimeters call or whatever it was that Neal Brown decided not to go for it there. But the reality is they made that punt. They pinned them deep, and the defense just didn't make enough plays to get off the field. So there's a lot of things that went into that game. But you and I both agreed West Virginia probably should have won that game. But again, it comes down to a couple of plays. Pitt gets the upper hand there, and now you get Pitt back in your own stadium for revenge. I would, if this game was a neutral site or if it was at Pitt, I would be like, I don't know. With this game being fully backed by West Virginia fans, and you have that revenge factor in your mind, I think you've got to go with West Virginia here. They got their momentum back or that confidence back after a nice win over Duquesne. I think they beat Pitt here.
Yeah, I don't care where they play. West Virginia wins. This is a team that doesn't return a lot of production, and a new starting quarterback again. He comes from Boston College, Jerkovich. That's how you pronounce it. No idea. But they do have a talented running back, Rodney Hammond Jr. He got banged up a little bit last year, but he had under 500 yards. Still played 9 games, under 500 yards. They're hoping for a lot of him. Looking at the receivers, there's not a lot of production coming from the receiving core, so it's a complete rebuild. They're missing a lot of their guys on defensive line. They do bring back Devonshire, who got the pick six to give Pitt the was it the lead or the tie the game there that went through Bryce Ford Wheaton's hands. So he was beat by 7 yards on that plays, and that is what it is. So I don't. I give Pitt. It is a rivalry. It will be close, but there's no way Pitt rolls into West Virginia and wins this game with everything that happened last year. Rivalry, being in Morgantown. I figure West Virginia will win by 2 possessions, 10, 14, somewhere around there.
So now we both have them at 2-1. Now going to week 4 in the Big 12 opener, and that is against Texas Tech. And this is a team, Curse, that has got a lot, and I mean a lot of preseason hype, especially after just 1 year under their new head coach, McGuire. But I think it's warranted. I really do. Last year just felt like a different Texas Tech team. Like we've heard over the years, like, yes, this is maybe the chance where, or the time where Texas Tech kind of takes that step forward. They turn the corner and they actually win games throughout the entire season, not just in September and the first part of October. I felt like that team was a little different last year. They can play a little bit of defense. They've got the quarterback back in Tyler Shuck. I think this is a legit team, and I think they should have been ranked in the top 25. I know they're the first team in that receiving votes category, but they should have been in that top 25. I've got West Virginia losing the Big 12 opener here to Texas Tech. Neal Brown still trying to look to get that monkey off his back.
Yeah, this is one of those another team that not returning a lot of production offensively. Yes, they got hot there with Shock or whatever, however you pronounce his name as well. But Taj Brooks returns. Again, he didn't have a lot of yards last season, but again, a lot of it is just the hopes that these guys have a breakout year. So where will Texas Tech be at that point in time? We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns as we look forward to a lot of these teams. Are unknowns. They do return a lot of starters, quote unquote. Um, but again, there's not a lot of production. So where will they be? How much have they improved? My only thing with Texas Tech is West Virginia struggled against Texas Tech since Neal Brown's here. That's one of those. I know they got the Oklahoma State monkey off their back and Oklahoma last year. Can they do it against Texas Tech? I hate picking West Virginia to lose at home, but 2 years ago when they came to Morgantown, we thought, okay, this is the win they'll get because it's in Morgantown. For whatever reason, they just came out really flat. They've come out really flat against Texas Tech. So I'm with you. I'm not going to pick West Virginia in this one. It's again, we start looking at it. Okay, well, is this team going to be good? This is a brutal schedule. The losses are going to come from somewhere. They're not. I just don't see No matter how much I think West Virginia's improved, losses are going to pile up with this schedule. So I'm going to say Texas Tech wins. I make an argument that you can trade this win for a loss somewhere else, but I'll take this one as a loss.
So now you go to the first Big 12 road game, and this is against the defending national champion runner up in TCU. They obviously got blown out in that championship game against Georgia, but I don't know. I mean, this is a team that I get they lost a ton of talent. They lost Kendrick Miller, Quentin Johnston, Max Duggan, and a lot of other guys, but I mean, hey, I mean, Sonny Dykes knows what he's doing. He knows how to run an offense. And Chandler Morris, he actually won that quarterback job to begin the season last year before he got nicked up. So I think they're okay. They're going to figure things out offensively. Defensively, I'm not really sure what to really expect out of them. But with this being on the road, we know what winning on the road in this league is tough. Regardless if it was Dana or Neal, it doesn't matter. Winning on the road is tough, especially when you got an offense that can be explosive again, like TCU. I've got to go with the Horned Frogs here, dropping West Virginia to 2-3.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the same. Um, that first Big 12 road game is gonna be tough. TCU that series has always been tight. West Virginia, even as good as TCU was last year, they played them tight until late. So I'm gonna take TCU as well. Um, like you said, Chandler Morris won it, but he won the starting job or whatever it was last year before he got dinged up. I think they'll be all right. Same thing applies. We're gonna hear this whole thing. I think they'll have enough returning offensively that they can make some noise, especially down at TCU. So I'm gonna go TCU reluctantly. I kind of like them to go down there and win, but I'm gonna take TCU. I'm switching this at last minute for another
Oh,
loss. So this is a last minute change from what I was gonna do. So I'll take that one as a loss.
well, so far we are in agreement with everything. Shocker. Again, this is how 2-3 heading into the bye. But coming out of that bye, you go back to Texas and you see an old familiar friend, Dana Holgerson, and actually more than just one. You got Michael Laughlin out there, Tony Mathis, Sam Brown, Noah Guzman. I mean, there's a bunch of former Mountaineers out there. So this one's going to mean a lot. I guarantee for those guys, they're going to have this one circled on their schedule for sure. And this being a Thursday night game, it's a little tricky. I don't like Houston. I think they have got a lot to overcome offensively. They lost Clayton Tune, Tank Dell, and that defense is a mess heading into this season. But again, with it being Thursday night, it feels like one of those games that West Virginia could just go in flat and just lose. I don't know if they're going to end up doing that. I don't think it's a pretty win, but I think they do get back on the winning track here against Houston.
Yeah, this they have 50 newcomers
It's a
coming into
lot.
this season. But the good news for Houston, they return all 5 starting linemen, offensive linemen. So that does give them a chance, right? If you bring back your starting linemen, it gives them a chance. The problem is, they have Texas Tech transfer Donovan Smith at quarterback coming in. First year starter. Of course, we know how good Dana can run an offense. The problem is, do they have the skill position guys? That's really the question we're having throughout this whole process, this whole prediction is can their skill prediction come up? I know Michael Laughlin, Tony Mathis are highlighted in their offense, and Tony Mathis, without a doubt, is a great running back. I'm sure a lot of West Virginia fans would like to see him come back this year, but I think this could be a situation out of the 4 newcomers, West Virginia getting them in October, maybe better for them than seeing them in November when they're starting to piece everything together. Health will be a big concern for Houston, obviously, with all the newcomers trying to find that team chemistry. So I'm going to take West Virginia in this one. This kind of falls in that Pitt category for me. That like Neal Brown doesn't want to go down there and lose to the guy
Oh,
that
yeah.
was here prior. I'm sure Dana feels the same way, but I just don't think he has the roster right now to be able to pull that off.
So then West Virginia comes back home and plays Oklahoma State, and that's a team that they've had a lot of trouble with too over the years. They finally won down there in Stillwater last year to close out the season, but West Virginia has not beat Oklahoma State in Morgantown since 2013. This is another item that they can check off the list here if they can get that accomplished, and I think they do. I think this Oklahoma State team, again, I've said it multiple times already this preseason, but it just doesn't look like they have the pieces to get over that hump and exceed expectations. Mike Gundy always has these types of teams where it looks like they're probably going to be, an average middle of the pack Big 12 team, but he finds a way to get an extra win or two. And whether it be because of quarterback play or a stout defense, it's always something different. I can't really identify that thing this year. So I think West Virginia takes advantage of that. Oklahoma State is a below average team in the Big 12 this year, and they get back on the winning side here.
Yeah, this one's Oklahoma State's always is tough to gauge right now because Gundy really hasn't had back-to-back average seasons before. Usually he had bounced back by this point. So, looking at him on paper, getting a lot of production, kind of expect him to be a better team this year, but you just don't know. But if West Virginia was returned to Oklahoma State this year, I would actually pick Oklahoma State to win out there. But since it's in Morgantown, I'm picking the Mountaineers. The Mountaineers to take it.
So now we both have them at 4-3, and we've agreed on everything so far. But I think this is going to start getting into that territory where maybe begin to differ. And this is down in the bounce house, and this is against Central Florida and that high-powered offense that Gus Malzahn has, where they can run the ball, they can throw it, they can do whatever. John Reese Plumlee, really good quarterback. I want to go with West Virginia. I do. But I believe this is UCF's homecoming game. It's going to be a sellout crowd. They're going to be up for this one. They're going to be amped. And it's one of those weird atmospheres where you just kind of go into it. I don't know, something just doesn't feel right about this game. Kind of like that same feeling to a certain extent. I know it's totally different situations when West Virginia went into Iowa State and Will Greer's senior year in 2018, which just kind of felt weird going into it. I kind of get that same sense here. Again, who knows? By this time of the season, we may see what these two teams are really like, and maybe my guess is completely off. But I'm going to go UCF here, getting the win in the bounce house and dropping WVU, I believe, to what is 4-4.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what steps Plumlee has taken in the off season. He was their leading passer and rusher on the team. Probably going to have some help. He's definitely going to have help to navigate this league. How beat up is he by the time West Virginia rolls in Orlando is going to be a question for them. So kind of how I started it off, like, do they have the depth, the talent, depth on the two deep, uh, to be determined? But I'm actually taking West Virginia to win this game.
We differ.
Newcomer late, late in the year. I think I know West Virginia will have a strong presence, fan presence down there. Great alumni base in that area. So, depending on where Plumlee is at, I don't really know about Mikey Keene, their backup quarterback, but Malzahn is a good offensive coordinator, but he hasn't really put together a great resume. When you start stacking seasons, he hasn't been great. I'm taking West Virginia. I think UCF is in for a rude awakening this year. Not to say they're going to have a losing season or be terrible, but you don't get cupcakes in this league. So playing that late in the year, we'll see where they're at. But West Virginia takes that one.
So this is a great opportunity for West Virginia to bounce back, at least in my scenario where they lose to UCF. They come back home, play BYU, and this is kind of one of those measuring stick games, even though it's late in the year. It's kind of a barometer to really see how tough this team is after they lose a tough game on the road. I think they come back, they match BYU's physicality in the trenches, and they will their way to an ugly, kind of low scoring game, maybe like a 24-21 type of game. But they run the ball well, they play good defense, force some turnovers. They get BYU at home and get back on track. Now, careful here. You've got West Virginia winning 3 in a row here. You got them on a heater. Did they get 4 here?
Yes,
Wow.
BYU.
Okay.
BYU's always tough. Without a doubt, BYU is always tough. I'm with you on it. I don't want to say it's going to be an ugly game, but it's definitely going to be a physical game. Um, Same thing applies. Do they have the depth? Do they have the depth? By the time November 4th rolls around, we'll see. But West Virginia, I'll say escapes, and we'll make it even interesting on a walk-off field goal. Let's give them a walk-off field goal. We haven't had one of those yet.
Who's the kicker? Because we don't even know at this point.
We don't have a depth chart. Hopefully, it's all team managers. I hope they filled out with team managers for the game. That's one I want to see released right before game time.
Yes. So the one team that West Virginia did finally beat last year, that was Oklahoma. They had not beaten Oklahoma since joining the Big 12 Conference. They did that last year. They go to Norman this year. This is the final Big 12 matchup between these two before Oklahoma departs to the SEC. So one last crack at Oklahoma, maybe a chance to win 2 in a row against them before they leave. I don't know that that's going to happen though. This is a team that really seems hungry and eager to get back on the field and really make a run for it this year in the Big 12. Their last year again in the Big 12. They had so many one-loss scores last year. Their only blowout was against Texas. Okay, so I think 5 of their 7 losses were one-score games. If they can just get the ball to bounce their way a few times, which I think they will, because I think they're going to take a considerable step in year 2 on the defensive side under Brent Venables. They're going to win some more games. They're going to be in the mix in the top 3 or 4 in this conference. So it's a tough game, and I know they don't want to lose 2 in a row to West Virginia to leave the Big 12. I'm going with Oklahoma here.
Yeah, this is the only team that West Virginia faces returns 1,000-yard rusher and 1,000-yard receiver, bringing back the quarterback. So yeah, Oklahoma, I think, is obviously going to be better this year. I'm not sold on Venables as a head coach. I don't know if they'll be in the mix when it comes to towards the end of the season as far as Big 12 championship is concerned. This is definitely going to be a much better team at Oklahoma. Same thing we kind of said about the Pitt game. Revenge is a big factor in this one. West Virginia came back to win that game with Garrett Green. I do like West Virginians. This isn't a foregone conclusion that West Virginia loses this game, but considering the struggles, the talent gap over the years, I'm gonna give Oklahoma the edge. Again, I could trade another loss for this one. I could be convinced because West Virginia has played Oklahoma tough um, on multiple occasions, especially out there. So it's not a foregone conclusion, but what they've returned, that chemistry, I'm sure they have a big chip on their shoulder after the way they performed last year. So Oklahoma.
Cincinnati for senior day, and this one will be a fun one, I'm sure, for a lot of guys on the roster who are from Ohio or just from the area, in that kind of tri-state area where they kind of remember some of the history there in the Big East with the Bearcats. But this is a one-sided series with West Virginia owning the Bearcats throughout the years. And this is not the same Cincinnati Luke Fickell Bearcats that went to the college football playoff a few years ago. This is a massive, massive overhaul and rebuild that Scott Satterfield's got going on here at UC. So I do think Cincinnati will be a true player in the Big 12 down the road when they can start recruiting to that Big 12 brand, that logo. They could start maybe winning some of those kids that Ohio State goes after. They're not going to get all of them still, but I think they're in a much better position to recruit. But right now, again, it's the depth. It's the 11th game of the season. They're probably in bowl ineligible at this point, so I'm probably going to lean hard to West Virginia here to win on senior day and send those guys out on a good note.
Yeah, there's a lot of rebuild at Cincinnati. I'm not going to spend time on this one. I think West Virginia. I don't want to say cruises again. Got to respect your opponent better than that, especially Cincinnati. I don't know how good they're going to feel by the time that game rolls around. But I think nothing's easy in this conference. I don't want to say that, but West Virginia wins the game.
So you've got West Virginia winning 5 of its last 6 games, if I'm marking this correctly. So you've got the fan base getting off that Neal Brown fire him train, and you got
I mean,
you
at
turned
this
around.
point, it's only 7-4, I think, at this point, right? So,
Yeah, that's true. So let's just get right to it. The final game of the season at Baylor. This one, I think they feel good coming off that win against Cincinnati. They got bowl eligible. They go out to Waco, and it's just kind of a kind of game. There's not really anything to play for in terms of the Big 12 conference race or anything like that. They got the bowl eligibility already. I think this may be a game. Heck, even Baylor, they may be fighting for bowl eligibility. Who knows what Baylor's going to look like? They were a team that was high going into the season last year, massively underwhelmed. Is that kind of going to be the same thing again this year, or are they actually going to live up to their preseason expectations? Who knows what the Baylor Bears are going to look like? But I think, again, on the road, tough place to win. I got to go Baylor. 6-6 for West Virginia.
yeah, this is another team. Where are they going to be at by the time Virginia plays them? They do bring their quarterback, like Shaven back. Richard Reese, their running back, was just shy of 1,000 yards last year. I think defensively, with Aranda, I think they're going to be fairly solid. Do they have enough offense to kind of carry them? What do they look like as far as their record? What are they playing for at that point? This is one of those games. It's kind of 50-50. We just don't know. You can kind of gone through it, see what everybody's. We just don't know. They don't have anything on the outside, just like West Virginia. Where are they going to be at? Um, so this is the game that could either be 8 wins or 7, or stay at 7 wins for me. I'll give. I'm gonna give West Virginia the nod here.
Oh,
Finish it 8-4. And the reason why I think they get hot, you mentioned, they won 5 of their 6 games. And the big difference will be Garrett Green this year. When you have leadership at quarterback, a vocal leader, someone that can rally the troops in a huddle, maybe give you the game-winning drive. Saw it against Oklahoma last year, where put the team on his back and came back to beat Oklahoma. That's the biggest difference in this team this year. Still got questions, obviously, at receiver. Injuries matter, but I think that's the difference, and that's why they're going 8-4.
man, so you haven't won 6 of their last 7, getting on a true heater with a chance to get a 9th win in a bowl game, which that would be the most wins.
If you think about it, that would be the time that the offense is really coming together with everybody. that's kind of what you're looking for. Those early tough games, they're going to be tough, without a doubt. You kind of get beat up, and then you kind of get on a roll. So yeah, I can definitely see the fan base after what I think it's 3-3. I had them there, maybe
Feel a
somewhere
little
around there.
rocky, choppy waters.
Yeah, a little choppy waters at first, but then they kind of hit their stride throughout the rest of the conference. And that goes to at the beginning what we were saying, getting those new teams late in the season can really give West Virginia advantage and really bolster and really give them momentum into the bowl game and in the next year. Because when you think about this team, a lot of pieces come back next year. Have
Yes,
to
sir.
make some work at their offensive line. Yeah, but you start kind of churning it out. It could be something, the start of something.
So if that is the case, they get to 8-4, and then say they win the bowl game, that would be the most wins that they have had since 2016 when they went 10-3 with Schuyler Howard. So you have them 8-4, 6-3 in the conference. I have them 6-6, 4-5. So we differed on a few things. Again, you have them winning 6 of the last 7. I have them alternating wins and losses from about the midway point on. And so for me, so what I'll ask here is, and I know it's fairly obvious, I think, at least with your case, is does Neal Brown have his job going into next year? If it's your scenario, I don't think it's a question mark. Like it's yes, you win 6 of the last 7 games, you're 8-4, and you have a chance to win your 9th game. There is no talk whatsoever about Ren Baker trying to find a new head football coach. But in my scenario, where you're 6-6, you're 4-5 in the conference, you're alternating wins and losses, that's kind of a gray area, I think, for me. I mean, again, a lot of it's probably going to be coming down to what does this team look like in those losses? Is it one score losses, kind of like Oklahoma had last year, was just a bunch of them? Are they getting blown out in these games? Are they not able to overcome adversity? Are they not able to handle success when they have it? What does that look like? I think 6-6, I have said from the very beginning, 6 wins to me is still a gray area for Neal Brown. If he gets across that mark and gets to 7 or more, I think he's in good position. What do you think?
It really, I think so much is depending on what the Big 12 looks like. As we just went through our West Virginia's schedule, there's a lot of unknowns in this team. So, to me, those 6 wins and all, if those teams are just average, um, I think they got to take a really hard look at what they want to do. If those 6 wins and a lot of these Big 12 teams, they developed really well, they put their team together, and it's just been a fight all year with everybody, then you look at the 6 wins and say, okay, if you can retain everybody and culture is good, you like what you see, then yeah, he's gonna continue to coach here. It's just so much is dependent on this league. There's just a lot of question marks. Too many question marks going into the season. Too many question marks with the opponents to even gauge win loss. I think Ren Baker was very smart to say, hey, 6 wins keeps his job. 5 wins or less loses his job. He was very smart not to put a number out there because again, there's far too many question marks with these opponents to really dictate to really try to determine whether or not that he could keep his job at 6, 7, or 8 wins. I mean, yeah, if he wins 8 wins, even on a mediocre Big 12, definitely solidifies it because again, going into it, it kind of looks like an equal playing field with the schedule. So if you come out on top ahead of that over 500, I think you're in a good position moving forward. Especially if you kind of look at the losses for Texas Tech, it's supposed to be good this year, and TCU is defending runner-up national champions or whatever you want to call it. Oklahoma's maybe Oklahoma at that point. So it really does matter when you lose, who you lose to, because if you look at last year, that Kansas lost second game of the season was horrendous, right? You lose at
Everyone
Kansas at
brought it up.
home, but then all of a sudden kind of figured out, well, Kansas is a pretty good football team. And I know the record didn't show it. Well, their quarterback got hurt midway through the season. So who you play, when you play, how they were playing will make a big difference. So hopefully West Virginia just developed everybody. Hopefully Garrett Green is that X factor for this team to push them over top some of those close games because at the end of the day, a lot of the times West Virginia was in a lot of games last year, had a lot of opportunities to win more games. It to me, Green's the difference. But if you don't have receivers getting open and they can kind of box you in there with the run game, it could end up being a long season for West Virginia.
It could. It very well could. I think it could go a lot of different ways, and it's really hard to tell with this team because, like I think I've told you off air, when I look at this team for what it is, and the talent that they have, like they have the pieces to get to 8 wins. I can see the path for that. I can understand where you're coming from. For me, it's the history, what we've seen the last few years with this coaching staff that has me a little hesitant in thinking, yes, 8 is possible. But I mean, who knows? Again, if Neal Brown goes 5-7, um, I don't see him keeping his job. The only way, again, if he keeps his job at 5-7, is if there is just an absurd amount of injuries that it's almost impossible for him to even get to 6 wins because of how many key injuries there were throughout the year. But that's a lot of ifs. We don't know. We don't have the answers right now, but we're about to get the answers starting here in a couple days on Saturday at Penn State. So the evaluation begins for Neal Brown on Saturday. Yes, it already started before, but the true evaluation of the 2023 season begins Saturday. So we've got an action-packed week for you. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Tomorrow, we have In the Gun with Jed West and Owen. They're going to be making their picks for the week in their Big 12 in terms of the best offense, defense, and all that good stuff. And they're going to be recapping week 0. On Thursday, I'll be back with Eugene for the Walkthrough Game Day Show, previewing West Virginia Penn State. We'll make our picks for the week. And then on Friday, Chris will rejoin me for our best bets segment, or Gambler's Corner. We haven't come up with a name yet. We're not very creative with that. So, but we'll be back with that on Friday. We're going to pick 4 of our best bets across college football, spreads or totals. And then we'll also pick the best bet or the best play in the West Virginia game for that week. So that's that on Friday. And then Saturday, we'll have the post-game show with Eugene Napoleon. And then Sunday, we'll be back in the very early morning for the morning after. Again, a little bit of a recap of what happened on Saturday and a small peek ahead to next week. So that's it for us here today. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe on YouTube at Mountaineers Now, and give us a follow on Twitter at the same handle there, Mountaineers Now as well. And hey, if you want, we've got some gear available for sale. Mountaineers Now, Between the Ears, the Walkthrough Game Day Show, all that stuff. If you want to help support us and our channel, click the link in the description below and see if there's anything that you like there that you can rock out for us. And if you do, let us know. Take a picture, send it to us, and we'll thank you for supporting the channel here for us here on Mountaineers Now. So for Christopher Hall, I'm Schuyler. You've been watching Between the Ears. We'll see you back here on Friday.